Hello, good afternoon, happy Saturday. So, we're getting back into The Women Who Run with the Wolves Myths and Stories of the Wild Woman Archetype by Clarissa Pinkola Estes. Estes. I bet it's Estes. Like, but we're getting back into chapter 14, and we're reading this one in 7 parts. And today we're getting into the second stage. There's links below to the previous reading, all the previous readings. This one's going to be a shorter one. The second stage. Oh, let me get the glasses. This is some tiny print. Okay. The second stage, the dismemberment. In the second stage of the story, the parents stumble home, weeping tears on all their finery. 3 years to the day, the devil comes to fetch the daughter. She has bathed and put on a white gown. She stands inside a chalk circle she's drawn around herself. When the devil reaches out to seize her, an unseen force throws him across the yard. He orders her not to bathe. She devolves to an animal-like condition, but she weeps on her hands, and again the devil cannot touch her. He orders the father to cut off her hands so she cannot weep on them. This is done, and thus her life, as she has known it, is ended. But she cries on the stumps of her arms, and the devil again cannot overwhelm her, and he gives up. The daughter has done remarkably well considering the circumstances. Yet we are numb once we have passed through this stage and realize what has been done to us, how we surrendered to the will of the predator and the frightened father so that we wound up being made handless. After this, spirit reacts by moving when we move, by reaching when we reach, by walking when we walk, but it has no feeling to it. We are numb when we realize what has come to pass. We are horrified to fulfill our barter. We think our internal parental constructs are supposed to always be alert, responsive, and protective of the flowering psyche. Now we see what happens when they are not. 3 years pass between the making of the bargain and the devil's return. These 3 years represent a time when a woman does not have clear consciousness about the fact that she herself is the sacrifice. She is the burnt offering that has been made for some poor bargain. In mythology, the 3-year period is the time of mourning momentum, as in the 3 years of winter that precede Ragnarok, the twilight of the gods. In Scandinavian mythology, that was the end of the sentence. The twilight of the gods in Scandinavian mythology. In myths like these, 3 years of something occurs, then comes a destruction. Then from that ruin is born a new world of peace. Then from that ruin is born a new world of peace. Hey, Amrita. Hey, Cool Gamer. Welcome in, y'alls. Awesome. Happy Saturday. It's nice out there, isn't it? It's hot. Well, I didn't spend a whole lot of time out there because it was hot. It's nice in here right now. This number of years is symbolic of the time when a woman wonders what will happen to her now, wonders if what she fears most, being totally carried off by a destructive force, is really going to occur. The fairy tale symbol of three follows this pattern. The first try is no good. The second try, still no good. The third turn, now something will happen. Soon, enough energy will be stirred at last. Enough soul wind has been raised to cause the psychic vessel to sail far and away. Lao Tzu says, quote, "Of the one comes two, and of the two, 3, and from the 3 come 10,000, end quote. By the time we come to the 3 power of anything, that is, to the transformative moment, the atoms leap, and where there was once lassitude, there is now locomotion. Ooh. Remaining without husband for 3 years can be understood as the psyche in an incubation. one in which it would be too difficult and distracting to have another relationship. The work of these 3 years is to strengthen oneself as much as one can, to use all one's psychic resources for oneself, to become as conscious as possible. That means stepping outside our suffering and seeing what it means, how it goes, what pattern it is following, studying others with the same pattern who have come through it all, and imitating what makes sense to us. Thing. It is this kind of observation of predicaments and solutions that bids a woman to stay to herself. And this is right, for as we find further in the story, the maiden's task is to find the bridegroom in the underworld, not in the topside world. In hindsight, women see the preparation for their initiatory descent mounting over a long period of time, sometimes years, till finally and suddenly over the edge and into the rapids they go, most often pushed over, but occasionally entering by a graceful dive from the cliffs, but rarely. Delaney, welcome in. This period of time is sometimes characterized by an ennui. Women will often say their mood is such that they cannot quite put their finger on what it is they want, whether it be work, lover, time, creative work. It is hard to concentrate. It is hard to be productive. This nerve restlessness is typical of this spiritual developmental stage. Time alone, and not very far down the road, will take us to the edge we need fall, step, or dive over. At this point in the tale, we see a fragment of the old night religions. The young woman bathes, dresses in white, draws a chalk circle around herself. It is an old goddess ritual to bathe, purify, to don the white gown, the garb of descent to the land of the dead, and to draw a circle of magic protection, sacred thought, around oneself. All these the maiden does in a rather trance-like state, as though she is drawing instruction from far away in time. There is a crisis point for us when we are waiting for what we are sure will be our destruction, our ending. This causes us, like the maiden, to cock our ears forward, or to cock our ear toward a faraway voice coming from ancestral time, a voice that tells us how to stay strong, how to keep spirit simple and pure. Once in my own despair, I dreamt a voice that said, "Touch sun." After the dream, every day, wherever I went, I put my back or the sole of my foot or the palm on the sun cats, the rectangles of sunlight, on walls, floors, and doors. I leaned and rested on those golden shapes. They acted as a turbine to my spirit. I cannot say how, only that it was so. It's good. Shit. I cannot say how, only that it was so. I thought that was the end of a... Oh, there it is. If we listen to dream voices, to images, to stories, especially those from our own lives, and to our art, to those who have gone before, and to each other, something will be handed out to us, even several somethings that are ritual, personal psychological rites, these serving to steady this stage of the process. The bones of this tale are from the time when it is said that goddesses combed the hair of mortal women and loved them so. In this sense, then, we understand that the descents in this tale are those that draw a woman to the ancient past, to her ancestral mother lines and the underworld. Oh, mother lines in the underworld. This is the task, to return through the mists of time to the place of La Sabe, who is expecting us. She has extensive underworld teachings for us that will be of great value to our spirits and to us in the outer world. In the old religions, dressing oneself in purity and preparing for one's death makes one immune, inaccessible to evil, placing the old protection of the wild mother about herself, about oneself, the chalk circle of prayer, highest thought, or concern for an outcome beneficial for the soul's sake. These enable our psychological descent to continue without swerving off course, without our vitality being extinguished by the devilish opposing force of the psyche. Here we are, all dressed up and as protected as we can be, awaiting our fate. But the maiden weeps, cries on her hands. At first, when the psychic cries unconsciously, we are unable to hear it except for a feeling of helplessness that comes over us. The maiden continues to weep. Her tears are a germination of that which preserves her, that which purifies the wound she has received. C.S. Lewis wrote about the battle of child's tears, or the bottle of child's tears that heals any wound with just one drop. Tears in mythos melt the icy heart. In The Stone Child, a story I've amplified from a song poem given to me years ago by my beloved Inuit madrina, Mary Ukalat, a boy's hot tears cause a cold stone to break open, releasing a protective spirit. In the tale, Mary Culhane, the demon who has seized Mary cannot enter any house where tears have been cried by a true heart. These the demon considers holy water. All through history, tears have done three works: called the spirit to one side, repelled those who would muffle and bind the simple soul, and healed the injuries of poor bargains made by humans. In one of my most I guess I would say it felt like one of my most unbalanced and saddest, out of control moments. I couldn't seem to get a grip. And I was just like feeling like I was just really feeling the pain. I was really feeling it. I couldn't stop crying. I was overwhelmed. And I just shouted out in my head, "Please help me. Please help me. Please make this stop." Boom. I was like transported to another place in my mind where I had this meeting with what the interwebs calls a god. And that stuff, I don't know. I've been relying a lot on spirit, and I'm so thankful. I just am so thankful. Oh my gosh, it's powerful, right? Ask and you will receive. Yeah. There are times in a woman's life when she cries and cries and cries, and even though she has the succor, even though she has the succor and support of her loved ones, still and yet she cries. Something in this crying keeps the predator away, keeps away unhealthy desire or gain that will ruin her. Tears are part of the mending of rips in the psyche where energy has leaked and leaked away. The matter is serious, but the worst does not occur. Our light is not stolen, for tears make us conscious. There is no chance to go back to sleep when one is weeping. Whatever sleep comes, then is only rest for the physical body. Whatever sleep comes, then is only rest for the physical body. Sometimes a woman says, "I'm sick of crying. I'm tired of it. I want it to stop." Yeah. But it is her soul that is making tears, and they are her protection. So she must keep on till the time of need is over. Wow, it's making me feel all sensitive and sad. Some women marvel at all the water their bodies can produce when they weep. This will not last forever, only till the soul is done with its wise expression. The devil tries to approach the daughter and cannot, for she has both bathed and cried. He admits his power is weakened by such holy water and demands she no longer bathe. But rather than this debasing her, it has the opposite effect. She begins to resemble an animal then, infused with the power of the underlying wildish nature, and this too is protection. It may be at this stage that a woman takes less or a different sort of interest in her appearance. She may go about dressed more like a tangle of twigs than a person. As she contemplates her plight, many former preoccupations recede. Well, says the devil, if I peel away your civilized layers, maybe I can steal your life forever. The predator wishes to degrade her, weaken her by his prescriptions. The devil thinks that if the maiden became unbathed and dirty, then he would be able to rob her of herself. But just the opposite occurs. For the sooty woman, the mud woman, is beloved by the wild woman and protected by her unequivocally. It would appear that the predator does not understand that his prescriptions only put her closer to the powerful wild nature. The devil cannot come close to the wildish self. Being thus has a purity that eventually repels thoughtless or destructive energy. The combination of this and her pure tears prevents access to the vile thing that wishes her doom so it can live more fully. Next, the devil instructs the father to mutilate his daughter by chopping off her hands. If the father does not comply, the demon threatens to kill off the entire psyche. Quote, everything here will die, including you, your wife, and all the fields as far as you can see. End quote. The devil's goal is to cause the daughter to lose her hands, that is, her psychic ability to grasp, to hold, to help herself or others. The fathering element of the psyche is not mature, cannot hold its power against this intense predator, and so chops off his daughter's hands. He attempts to plead for his daughter, but the price, destruction of the entire creative force of the psyche, is too high. The daughter submits to the desecration, and the blood sacrifice is completed. That which in ancient times denoted a full descent to the underworld. In the act of losing her hands, the woman makes her way into La Selva Subterranea, the underworld initiation ground. If this were a Greek play, the tragic chorus would now cry out and weep, for even though the act causes her to learn immense power, at this time a woman's innocence has been slain and will never return in the same way again. The silver-lipped axe comes from another archaeological layer of the old wild feminine, in which silver is the special color of the spirit world and of the moon. The silver-lipped axe is so called, for in olden times it was made to forge blackened steel, and its blade was sharpened by whetstone till it turned a bright silverish color. In the old Minoan religion, the axe of the goddess was used to mark the ritual path of the initiate and to mark the places designated as holy. I have heard from two old Croatian tailors, Taleers, that in the old women's religions, a small ritual axe was used to sever the umbilical cord of the newborn, freeing the child from the underworld so it could live in this world. Wow. The silver of the axe is related to the silver hands that will eventually belong to the maiden. Here is a tricky passage, for it presents the idea that the removal of psychic hands may be ritual. In old women's healing rites in Eastern and Northern Europe, there was the concept of the young sapling being pruned with an axe in order to grow more full. Long ago, there was a deep devotion to living trees. They were valued, for they symbolized the ability to die and return back to life. They were esteemed for all the life-giving things they provided people, such as firewood for warmth and cooking, wands for cradles, staffs for walking, walls for shelter, medicine for fever, and also as places to climb, to see far, and, if necessary, to hide from the enemy. The tree was truly a great wild mother. In ancient women's religion, this sort of axe innately belongs to the goddess, not to the father. This sequence in the fairy tale strongly suggests that the father's ownership of the axe comes about in the story as a result of the scrambling together of the old and the newer religions. The older one itself having been dismembered, certainly dismembered, or remembered. Yet, regardless of the mists of time and or the overlays covering these old ideas about women's initiation, by following a tale such as this, one we can exact one we can exact what we need from the tangle. We can repiece the map that shows the path of descent and the way back up again. We can understand the removal of psychic hands in much the same way the symbol was understood by the ancients. In Asia, the celestial axe was used to cut one away from the unilluminated self. This motif of cutting as initiation is central to our story. If in our modern societies, the hands of the ego must be sundered in order to regain our wild office, our feminine senses, then go they must in order to take us away from all seductions of meaningless things within our reach, whatever it is that we can hold on to in order not to grow. If it is so that the hands must go for a while, then so be it. Let them go. The father wields the silver cutting tool, and though he has a sense of terrible regret, he holds more dear his own life and that of the psyche all around. Although some storytellers in our family clearly emphasize that the life he most fears losing is his own. If we understand the factor as an organizing principle, a sort of ruler of the external or holy psyche, then we can see that a woman's overt self, her mundane, ruling ego self, does not want to die. This is completely understandable. Such is always the case in a descent. Some of what we are is drawn to the descent as though it is something lovely, dark, and bittersweet. At the same time, we are repelled by it, crossing psychic streets, highways, and even continents to avoid it. Yet here we are shown that the flowering tree must suffer the amputation. The only way we can stand the thought of this is by the promise that someone somewhere in the underside of the psyche waits for us, waits to help us, heal us. And this is so. The great someone waits to restore us, to transform what has deteriorated, and to bind up the limbs that have been hurt. In the farmlands out where I grew up, lightning and hailstorms were called cutting storms, sometimes also reaper storms, as in Grim Reaper, for they cut down the living beings all around, livestock, and sometimes also humans, but mostly bearing plants and trees. After a great storm, entire families crept from their root cellars and bent over the land, seeing what help the crops, the flowers, the trees might need. The littlest children picked up the strewn boughs full of leaves and fruit. The older children propped up plants still living but slashed. They bound them up with wooden dowels, kindling splints, and white rag bandages. The adults dismantled and buried that which had been struck down irrevocably. Irrevocably. Maybe both work. Hey, Code, welcome. Dude, man, what a name you have there. I'm sorry, I gotta say no. That's not the vibe I'm going for here. But welcome on in. Man, what's up with the error on that? I already tried to. Dude, I know, right? I forgot to take the pickle jar down to work with me. And when I came upstairs after work, I was like, dang it, Kevin's already gone. Dang it. Maybe my dad can help me at work tomorrow. Can somebody help me block this user? I don't know why I can't seem to figure it out. Block. Okay. There is a loving family like this waiting for the maiden in the underworld, as we shall see. In this metaphor of cutting off the hands, we see that something will come of it. In the underworld, whenever a thing is not able to live, it is taken down and cut apart to be used in another way. This woman of the story is not old, not sick, yet she must be dismantled, for she cannot be the way she has been any more. Yet forces are waiting for her to help heal her. By cutting off her hands, the father deepens the descent, hastens the dissolutio, the difficult loss of all one's dearest values, which mean everything, the loss of vantage point, the loss of horizon lines, the loss of one's bearings without what one believes, and for what reasons. In Aboriginal rites worldwide, the idea is definitely to confuse the ordinary mind so that the mystical can be easily introduced to the initiates. Dang, I wonder why we're unable to block it, but it's okay. Oh, that's right. There was a festival out there. People are breaking down out there. So the hands are beings in their own right. Wait, did I read that? So it is in this descent that we lose our psychic hands, those parts of our bodies that are like two small human beings in and of themselves. In olden times, the fingers were likened to legs and arms, and the wrist joint was likened to the head. Those beings can dance, they can sing. I once clapped cadence with Rene Heredia, a great flamenco guitarist. In flamenco, the palms of the hands speak. They make sounds that are words like faster, oh beautiful one, soar now, be deeper, ah, feel me, feel this music, feel this and this and this. The hands are beings in their own right. I think I might have. I don't know. I'm not sure. I got sidetracked. I let myself become sidetracked. I read that. I read that. And then, okay, so I think I did skip just one paragraph here. So I think I might be rereading something. With the cutting off of the hands, the importance of the rest of the psychic body and its attributes is emphasized, and we know that the foolish ruling father of the psyche has not long to live, for the deep and dismembered woman is going to do her work, with or without his assistance and protection. And as gruesome as it may seem at first, this new version of her body is going to help. So it is in this descent that we lose our psychic hands, those parts of our bodies that are like two small human beings in and of themselves. In olden times, the fingers were likened to legs and arms, and the wrist joint was likened to the head. Those beings can dance, they can sing. I once clapped cadence with Rene Heredia, a great flamenco guitarist. In flamenco, the palms of the hands speak. They make sounds that are words like faster, oh beautiful one, soar now, be deeper. Ah, feel me, feel this music, feel this and this and this. The hands are beings in their own right. If you study crochet scenes, CRE with a tilde over it, CHE, crochet. If you study crochet scenes from the Mediterranean, more often than not, you see that the hands of the shepherds and the wise men, or of Mary and Joseph, are all extended with palms facing the divine child, as though the child were a light that could be received up through the skin of the palms. In Mexico, you see this also in statues of the great goddess Guadalupe, showering her healing light down upon us by showing us the palms of her hands. The power of the hands is recorded throughout history. At Kayenta, on the Dine Navajo reservation, there is a certain hogan with an ancient red handprint beside the door. It means we are safe here. Okay, but I want to look up that word. Crochet. Crochet.
Crash. Crash.
Creche. All right, cool. Creche. And then let's look up what it means. A model or tableau, a tableau representing a model or tableau representing the scene of Jesus Christ's birth displayed in homes or public places at Christmas. And then British, a nursery where babies and young children are cared for during the workday. Creche. All right. Cool. If you study creche scenes, okay, from the Mediterranean. Uh-oh, I just saw it and then oh yeah, that's right, I'm on a new page. As women, we touch many people. We know our palm is a kind of sensor. Whether in a hug or a pat or just a touch on the shoulder, we take a reading of the persons we touch. If we are connected in any way to La Quesabe, we know what another human feels by sensing them with our palms. For some, information in the form of images and sometimes even words comes to them, informing them of the feeling state of others. One might say there is a form of radar in the hands. Hands are not only receivers, but transmitters. When one shakes a person's hand, one can send a message, and often unconsciously does so by pressure, intensity, duration, and skin temperature. Persons who consciously or unconsciously intend meanness have touches that feel as though they are poking holes in the psychic soul body of the other. At the other psychological pole, hands laid upon a person can soothe, comfort, remove pain, and heal. This is woman's knowledge through the centuries, handed down mother to daughter. The predator of the psyche knows all about the deep mystery associated with hands. In too many parts of the world, the egregious, pathological way of demonstrating inhumanity is to kidnap an innocent person and cut off their hands, to dismember the human feeling, seeing, and healing function. The killer does not feel, so he does not wish for his victim to feel either. This is exactly the intention of the devil, for the unredeemed aspect of the psyche does not feel, and in its insane envy of those who do, it is driven to a cutting hatred. To murder a woman by cutting is a theme of many tales, but this devil is more than a murderer. He is a mutilator. He requires mutilation, not decorative or simple initiatory scarification, but the kind that intends to disable a woman forever. When we say a woman's hands are cut off, we mean she has bound away from self-comfort, from immediate self-healing, so very helpless to do anything except follow the age-old path. So it is proper that we continue to weep during this time. It is our simple and powerful protection against a demon so hurtful that none of us can fully comprehend its motive or raison d'etre. In fairy tales, there is the leitmotif called the thrown object. The heroine who is being pursued takes a magical comb from her hair and throws it down behind her, where it grows into a forest of trees so thick you couldn't poke a pitchfork between them. Or the heroine has a little vial of water, which she uncorks, sprinkling its contents behind her as she runs. The droplets turn into a flood, effectively slowing down her pursuer. In the story, the young woman cries and cries all over her stumps, and the devil is repelled by some sort of force field around her. He cannot seize her as he has intended. Here, tears are the thrown object, the watery wall that keeps out the devil, not because the devil is moved or made soft by them, he is not, but because there is something about the purity of true tears that causes the devil's power to be broken. When we find this to be true, when we cry for the love of God that nothing is on the horizon but the most bleak, the most dark and unredeeming possibilities. And yet the tears save us from being burnt into the ground for no useful end. The daughter must grieve. I am amazed at how little women cry nowadays. And then apologetically. I worry when shame or disuse begins to steal away such a natural function. To be a flowering tree and to be moist is essential, otherwise, you will break. Crying is good, it is right. It does not cure the dilemma, but it enables the process to continue instead of collapsing. And now, the maiden's life, as she has known it, her understanding of life to this point, is over, and she goes down to another level of the underworld. And we continue in her footsteps. We go onward, even though we are vulnerable and so peeled of ego protection, like a tree skinned of its bark. Yet we are powerful, for we have learned to sling the devil across the yard. At this time, we see in our lives that no matter what we do, our ego plans slip from our grasp. There will be a change in our lives, a big one. No matter what nice plans the little temperamental conductor ego has for the next movement. Our own powerful destiny begins to rule our lives, not the mill, not the sweeping, not the sleeping. Our lives as we once knew them are over. We are delirious of being alone, perhaps being left alone. We can no longer rely on the fatherly dominant culture. We are in the midst of learning our real lives for the first time. We go on. It is a time when all we value loses its lilt. Jung reminds us of the term used by Heraclitus, enantiodromia, meaning to flow backward. But this flowing backward can be more than a regression into the personal unconscious. It can be a heartfelt return to workable ancient values, more deeply held ideas. If we understand this stage of the initiation of endurance as a step backward, it must also be considered a step 10 leagues down and back into the realm of wild woman. All this causes the devil to throw his rump over his shoulders and stomp off. In this sense, when a woman feels she has lost her touch, lost her usual way with the world, she is powerful still in her purposeness of soul. She is strong in her insistence on her sorrow, and this causes the thing that wishes to destroy her to withdraw. The psychic body has lost its precious hands, it is true, but the rest of the psyche will compensate for the loss. We still have feet that know the way, a soul mind with which to see far, breasts and belly to sense with, just like the exotic and enigmatic belly goddess Baobo, who represents the deep instinctual nature of women and who also has no hands. With this incorporeal and uncanny body, we go forward. We are about to make the next descent. Boom. That was the second stage, and that's all we're doing for today. Hey, Scott, welcome in. Awesome. Welcome, everyone. So, wow. That was emotional. That was a lot. Man, she's so wonderful. We just ended on page 444. Let's go build something. I'll probably be back with another narration later today, but if not, I will see you tomorrow. So thank you very much. Until then, mwah, take care of yourselves. Thank you. Thank you.